JSE-listed firms Distell and Remgro have taken a tentative step into the rapidly growing cannabis sector with an investment into cannabis wellness brand Rethink. Globally, liquor companies are watching the burgeoning cannabis industry, I imagine with a great deal of interest, as AB InBev and Molson Coors and Constellation brands all dipping their toes into this fast-growing industry. The Daily Maverick today quoting Gabriel Crouse, he's an analyst with the Institute of Race Relations, is saying the ongoing effort to legitimise the industry within, he says, specific guidelines is a good thing. And he is with me now. Gabriel, good afternoon to you and welcome. First of all, a quick answer. Why is there this burgeoning market, do you think?
I think there's huge appeal to the product. People like to use cannabis both for medicinal purposes and for recreational purposes, and adults have proven through the years to be capable of doing so responsibly.
So the sense of what the size of the market is in South Africa and perhaps how it's growing, the numbers are fairly impressive, aren't they? It's worth 14 billion rand in South Africa at present. This is according to the Department of Trade and Industry, but that could almost double by 2024.
Yeah, I mean, some groups think it could grow even faster than that. Prohibition Partners estimated last year in a report that KZN alone could look at 100 billion rand revenue within the next 5 years were legitimization to proceed. So the prospects for jobs growth, for value add, and also for cleaning up the business to get away from the shady side, criminal side, potentially violent side is significant.
Let's talk about that in just a moment, but what is of concern to you is that as we speak right now, before anybody gets too excited, there still is restrictive legislation. What's your sense? Is this going to change anytime soon, given the potential economic upside?
So if we look at the legislative process, the Western Cape High Court ruled that marijuana should be allowed on the basis of privacy, and then the Constitutional Court reaffirmed that ruling in 2018, giving Parliament 2 years to draft legislation to allow for commercial use of marijuana, if that's what it deems fit. It has to adhere to the privacy regulation, but it could make its own rules beyond that. Parliament has been slow, and the resulting marijuana draft bill has not been great. We have some allowances for CBD, which is a sort of very innocuous form of cannabinoid, and so you can go to Santon and buy CBD sweets, but the THC product is currently commercially prohibited. And why is that? I think part of the reason is that South Africa is relatively conservative. The Institute of Race Relations polling in 2018 showed that 23% of South Africans thought that drugs and drug abuse are top priority concern in South Africa, and crime another 20% very closely related. And so insofar as you think that marijuana fits into that bucket of drugs that is driving people crazy and that poor and desperate people are relying on to escape a harsh reality, there's reason to take the conservative line that we should keep it illegal to commercially grow and sell. Against that, if you probe a little bit deeper, you find that the drugs that people are really concerned about are other drugs. And so part of the argument for legalizing is not just the jobs growth and revenue growth that you could get through taxes, but also allowing police resources to be more efficiently used to crack down on nyeope, crack, and so on, that really do cause social harm.
I made the point in my introduction that there are big firms involved here, Distell, Remgro, these are big organizations. Add to that AB InBev, all expressing an interest. You're concerned, and I quote you, "I worry that small growers will get screwed by a corporate supply chain that will squeeze all of the potential life out of them." I suppose, cruelly, that's probably inevitable the more these companies try to break into that market.
Well, it's not entirely clear that that's inevitable. If you look at the way the supply chain works, I think you do need economies of scale when it comes to redistribution and branding, and that's where the big companies come in. But when it comes to growing, marijuana is it's a cash crop. It's high intensity in terms of labor. We've got very good natural circumstances for growing it outdoors, and its yield in commercial terms per hectare are orders of magnitude greater than sort of crops and stock growth that we see in KZN right now. So it is the kind of product that could be sustained by small growers at the top of the supply chain who then feed into larger distributors, much like strawberries and certain nuts. You've got avocados. You've got relatively small growing entities feeding into Woolies and Pick and Pay.
So give me a suggested timeline here, Gabriel, in conclusion. How long is it going to be before I can buy a Castle Light and also a Castle Bong?
I think that's a difficult thing to forecast because the cards are in Parliament's hands. What I will say is that the soonest it could be done is this year, and the sooner the better. The sooner you do that, the better chance those small growers have to keep their market share that are currently growing to then filter into a legitimate supply chain, and the better chance we have of not importing our basic marijuana stock, which is what we're currently doing for CBD, to the point that by the time it's become legalized, it just makes more sense for big businesses to import it from developed countries like the US and Canada. So sooner would be better, but I think the timeline is looking like anything between a year and 5 years.